Hello everyone and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Thursday, December 21st. If you are joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll go on over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out. We'll go over to RotoWire and talk about the injuries in play for today's 6-game main slate. It is important to note that 7 teams are on the back-to-back for tonight's game, so we will not have a lot of injury reports till later this afternoon for those teams. And then after that, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and FanDuel and talk about my core picks on each site. So it's going to be one player at each position. So point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. So we're going to start off on the DraftKings side with Craig Porter Jr., $4,400, looking for at least 22 out of him, got to 29.75. So he was a really strong hit on yesterday's slate. Then we had his teammate Karis LeVert, $6,200, looking for at least 31 out of him, got to 41.25. So another strong hit there at that. And then at small forward, we went Kawhi Leonard here. I said this one was going to be between him and Jaylen Brown. Obviously, if Paul George missed, it was going to be Kawhi Leonard. And then if Paul George ultimately ended up playing, then it was going to move over to Jaylen Brown. Either way, both were pretty good yesterday, but Kawhi Leonard was the better play at $8,700. We were looking for at least 44 out of him, got to 56, so he was a solid hit at that. Then at power forward, we had Paolo Banchero, $8,000, looking for at least 40 DraftKings points out of him yesterday. Got to 32.5, so he was a mess. Kind of the shooting was the big thing for him yesterday. Only 2 for 12 from the field. Did pretty much everything else besides score the ball yesterday, so if he would have shot the ball at least adequately well, would have paid off at this price tag. And then last but not least, we had Isaiah Hartenstein at $5,800. Was looking for at least 29 out of him. Got to 23. So he ultimately ended up being a mess. Played 30 minutes in this game. Only 1 for 3 shooting from the field. So 10 rebounds, only 2 points. Kind of an unfortunate day for him overall. He was kind of expecting to play a couple extra minutes, but that game did end up being a little bit of a blowout at that as well. Then we move over to the FanDuel side. We had Craig Porter Jr. once again, $4,600, looking for at least 23 out of him, got to 32.4, so he was a good hit on the FanDuel side as well. Then we got his teammate Karis LeVert, $6,300, looking for 32 fantasy points out of him, got to 40.1, so he was another solid hit. And then after that, it kind of fell off. So we had Sam Hauser at small forward, $4,200, looking for at least 21 out of him, got to 17.5, so technically he was a mess. Played big minutes in this game, had 10 points, 5 rebounds, 1 assist, but not much else there. So just a little bit unfortunate day. Not a bad day by NBA standards, but not a good day for DFS purposes. And then we have Paolo Banchero. Once again, I have power forward at $8,100. Looking for at least 41 fantasy points out. Got to 31.6. He was a mess, like I said, on the DraftKings side. Did ultimately end up going 2 for 12 shooting from the field. If you had a decent shooting day from him, would have been paying off at this price tag. Did a lot of other things well. However, scoring the ball yesterday was not one of those strong suits for him overall. And then last but not least, we had Isaiah Hartenstein once again, $6,400. Looking for at least 32 out of him, got 24.5, so he was also a mess. Only played 30 minutes in that game and scored 2 real-life points and 10 rebounds. So it was a little bit unfortunate day for some of our picks, but if you had some other solid plays alongside them, still had a decent shot at cashing overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about the injuries in play for tonight's main slate. So we are going to start off with the Utah Jazz on the back-to-back, so we're not going to talk too much about them at this point in time. For the Detroit Pistons, Jalen Duren and Monty Morris both out once again. Isaiah Stewart is listed as probable, so he should be back, probably playing that center spot once again for them. And then Killian Hayes also set to return. He is listed as probable. I believe he was dealing with an illness. And then we move over to the New Orleans Pelicans, Larry Nance and Matt Ryan both out once again. Cody Zeller, Zion Williamson, Jonas Valanciunas, and Herb Jones, all this is questionable tonight. Jones, Valanciunas, and Zion all dealing with illnesses. And then Cody Zeller, I believe, is an ankle injury. So if we get to the rare situation where we have no Zion, no Jonas Valanciunas, no Cody Zeller, Trey Murphy's going to look really good. And we could even get to some Jerome Robinson Earl on tonight's slate, as crazy as that sounds. And then on the Cavaliers side, they're on the back-to-back. We'll see whether or not Donovan Mitchell ultimately ends up playing tonight or not. He did miss last night's game. And then we move over to San Antonio Spurs, Keldon Johnson and Victor Wembanyama. Both listed as probable to play today. Victor did miss their most recent game, so that is a good sign for him coming off that ankle injury. And then the Chicago Bulls also on the back-to-back. And we know Torrey Craig and Zach LaVine both are going to be out for an extended period of time. The other two guys really haven't been in the rotation either way, though. Then we move down to the Orlando Magic, who are also on the back-to-back, so we'll see whether or not Joe Ingles returns today or not. And we'll also see whether or not Wendell Carter Jr. plays plays on the back-to-back since he did just come back yesterday. For the Milwaukee Bucks, Jay Crowder's out once again. And then we have Giannis listed as questionable to play tonight due to a foot injury. Not too much news on this injury. If he doesn't play, Bobby Portis is going to look a lot more interesting, as well as Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton. But if he does play, still expect Giannis to have a pretty strong performance once again. Then we move over to the Clippers, who are also on the back-to-back, so can't say too much about them at this point in time. We'll see whether or not Paul George is able to go tonight. He did miss last night's game. Then with the Oklahoma City Thunder side, they are all the way healthy at this point in time. We move down to the Pacers, another team that is on the back-to-back. They did get Jalen Smith back last night. And then for the Memphis Grizzlies, they are without Brandon Clark, Luke Kennard, and Derrick Rose. And then Marcus Smart is technically listed as doubtful for tonight's game due to his foot injury. We move over to the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Both teams are on back-to-back, so we'll see if anything changes for them throughout the day. And then last but not least, we have the Washington Wizards with Giant Davis, Landry Shamet, and DeLon Wright all out once again. Ryan Rollins is not on that list, so it's safe to assume that he's back today, but probably not a big part of the rotation either way. And then on the Portland Trailblazers side, Shaedon Sharpe is listed as out for tonight's game overall. He was questionable last time out and ultimately played like 7-8 minutes in that game before ultimately tweaking his injury or getting re-injured once again. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries in play for tonight's slate. As always, if there's any other updates throughout the day, which there is definitely going to be with the 7 teams on the back-to-back, we'll have those listed down in the comments below, as well as the starting lineups as they do come out throughout the night. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So on the DraftKings side, at the point guard position, we're going to go with Ja Morant. He returned in his most recent game. He played 35 minutes, so there is no minutes limit concern at this point in time. Would expect him to play 35, 36 tonight, especially if this game's competitive. $9,500, you're looking for 47, 48 fantasy points out of him to get to 5X. Going against the Pacers tonight is probably the greatest matchup that you can get for any player, especially someone of Ja Morant's caliber. If he goes out there and he plays similar to his first game back, going to look like a really strong performance out of him tonight. Currently have him projected for 49, 50 points, but definitely does have some upside for more. And with that being said, he didn't make a single three-point shot in his first game back, 0 for 5 there. So if he knocks down 1 or 2 of those, could ultimately end up being an even better game for him as well. Then at shooting guard, we're going with Talen Horton-Tucker at $7,000. So I'll be completely honest, at this point in time, shooting guard was not an appealing position today just in general. Talen Horton-Tucker, $7,000. You're looking for at least 35 of him. Good matchup tonight versus the Pistons. He's been in that starting lineup the past 2 games and outperformed this price tag in both games. So definitely do like him a little bit tonight. Maybe this is a pick that ultimately does end up changing throughout the day as we do get some news though, but is a pretty interesting option, at least at this point in time. Then we move down to small forward with Karis LeVert, $6,500, looking for 32, 33 out of him. He's been a very interesting piece for this Cleveland team, especially with no Darius Garland in the mix at this point in time. Donovan Mitchell may or may not play tonight. If he doesn't play, Karis LeVert's going to look really good once again. Craig Porter Jr. would ultimately end up being a core pick at the same time as well. But with that being said, Karis LeVert just looks like a solid play overall. A little bit tougher matchup tonight against the Pelicans, but still do have him projected for 33 fantasy points on the DraftKings side tonight. And then we move down to power forward, Bobby Portis. Obviously, this is just if Giannis is out. If he's playing, probably doesn't look as good, although Bobby Portis has had some pretty big boom games as of late, in 26 minutes or less. So definitely do like the upside that could be there. It's a decent matchup against the Orlando Magic as well. But once again, if Giannis plays, this is probably going to be a pick that changes throughout the day. And then last but not least, we have Walker Kessler, $6,600 at that center position. Going against the Detroit Pistons, going to look like a pretty favorable matchup just in general. If he goes out there, if he can get some rebounds, get some blocks, maybe a couple points here and there, going to look like a solid play overall. Looking for 33 fantasy points out. I'm currently projected for 35, but definitely does have a ton of upside tonight overall. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you'll have $14,900 remaining. Just under $5,000 per player, so maybe you have to get a little bit more creative today. Probably going to be some decent value that does open up throughout the day, especially as we do get all those injury reports for all 7 teams on the back-to-back for today's slate overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So at the point guard position on the FanDuel side, not a lot of guys that stood out today. FanDuel is a little bit trickier for pricing. I think shooting guard, small forward looks all right, and then point guard, power forward, and center. A little bit tighter on the pricing just in general. But we're going to go with the pay-down option here in Sam Merrill. $4,100. Been playing pretty big minutes for this Cavs team as of late. Been shooting the ball incredibly well. A little bit tougher matchup tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. But if Donovan Mitchell is ultimately out once again, Sam Merrill's going to look like a pretty interesting play. And if he can keep up the shooting that he's been having in recent games, going to look like a very interesting play overall. $4,100. Very cheap price tag. We're only looking for 2021 out of him. I got him at 23 right now at this point in time. A lot could change with that throughout the day, but going to look like a very interesting option just in general. Then at shooting guard, we're going Taylor Horton-Tucker once again. On FanDuel, he is only $6,500, so only looking for 32, 33 out. I probably like him a little bit better on FanDuel just in general. From the type of player that he actually is, he's probably going to get more in terms of steals and blocks than he is for making three-pointers. So that is a little bit more favorable to FanDuel. If you look at what he's done so far since he's been in that starting lineup, it's been really good, and it's a great matchup tonight versus the Detroit Pistons. Currently having projected for 36 fantasy points tonight on the FanDuel side. Then we're going to move down to small forward, Karis LeVert, $6,600. Looking for 33 out of him. Currently have him projected for about 34, 35. A little bit tougher matchup tonight versus the New Orleans Pelicans, but if Donovan Mitchell's out once again, he's going to look even better. And then even if Donovan Mitchell plays, he's going to look like a solid option all around, especially with no Darius Garland available for this Cavs team at this point in time. And then we moved down to power forward position. So was kind of debating a few different guys here. Ultimately ended up on Keldon Johnson today, $7,300. So it's a little bit of an upgrade in terms of price tag. Looking for 36, 37 out of him. Little bit of back injury today, so maybe that's something that worries you. Typically, it's guys that I don't like playing, but it's usually if they have a back injury and they're already questionable. The fact that he's already probable, I'm not too worried about it. And the fact that he's not as much of a shooter as some of those other back injury guys typically are that I like to avoid coming off the back injury does make him pretty interesting. It's a favorable matchup versus the Chicago Bulls tonight, even though the Bulls are playing pretty well as of late. Definitely do like the upside that Keldon Johnson could have tonight. Currently I'm projected for 37, but definitely does have some upside for more as well. And then last but not least, on the opposite side of that Bulls game, we're going to go with Nikolai Vucevic at $8,600. Looking for at least 43 out of him. It's pretty tough for the center position today overall. Currently I have Vucevic projected for 42, but could have some upside for more tonight. It's going to be interesting to see how that matchup of him and Victor Wembanyama plays out tonight. Maybe Victor gets ruled out all of a sudden, but the fact that he's probable at least to start today makes us think that he will be ultimately in that starting lineup and playing tonight for the San Antonio Spurs. But for Vucevic, he's looked pretty good since Zach LaVine's been gone, so definitely do like his upside once again. And, at the same time, could have a little bit of downside. So it's going to make for a pretty interesting slate overall. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed on the FanDuel side today, you'll have $26,900 remaining, just over $6,700 per player. So a little bit of room and flexibility to be had there. Looks a little bit more like a balanced build type of day. But as always, with the injury updates coming out throughout the day, we should get some value opening up, especially given the fact that 7 teams are on the back-to-back for today's slate overall. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, December 21st. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. I do ask that with those questions that you please note whether they are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I will be listing all the injury updates throughout the day. Expect a lot of them to be out there, especially with 7 teams on the back-to-back. Once again, cannot stress that enough. And then I will also be posting all the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night, as well as my updated core about 15 to 20 minutes prior to lock. I will leave that as a pinned comment. If there's any other additional changes to the core at that point in time, I will leave them as a reply to that pinned comment as well. So definitely be sure to look out for all that information as we do get closer to lock. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking it out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we have NBA DFS in terms of the core pick videos Monday through Friday. And then on Saturday, I have the NFL DFS player pool video for the main slate. And then also be sure to check out my NFL DFS cheat sheets for both FanDuel and DraftKings up on the sports affiliation website as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS Prize Picks, and Parlay Play. If you are a brand new user to any one of those 3 sites, when you make your initial deposit, you will get a first match deposit bonus for Prize Picks and Parlay Play that is up to $100. So if you put $10 in, you get $10 in bonus. If you put $100 in, you get $100 in bonus. And then for BetUS, it's 125% of your initial deposit. So if you put $100 in, it'd be $125. And then if you put $2,000 in, it'd be $2,500. And $2,500 is the max for BetUS over there. So there's some pretty great opportunities to be had out there on all 3 of those sites. And then with that being said, if you have any questions related to sports betting, prop betting in general, feel free to reach out to me, whether it's down in the comments or on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport, and be more than happy to help you with that journey as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.